pirates of the Mediterranean. America's bold stand against the Barbary raiders. The Barbary Pirates, marauders who plagued the Mediterranean for 3 centuries, carried out attacks on ships, seized cargo, and enslaved crew members. Surprisingly, despite the obvious threat they posed, European naval powers largely ignored them. It wasn't until the early 19th century that the United States, a relatively young nation at the time, took the lead in dealing with the Barbary pirates. This raises the question of why the United States acted before more established European nations like France or Spain. In the late 18th century, the Barbary pirates operated primarily from North African states, with Algiers being the most notorious among them. European naval powers had learned that confronting the pirates militarily was a costly endeavor, leading them to adopt the strategic approach of paying them off. While this approach wasn't cheap, it was more cost-effective than going to war. For example, Britain heavily relied on bribing the pirates, forming a cornerstone of their naval strategy in the region. When the United States declared independence in 1776, they lost the protection that Britain had paid for, making American shipping vulnerable to pirate attacks. Over the next 25 years, numerous U.S. vessels fell victim to pirate attacks, and the cost of appeasing the pirates became exorbitant for the young nation. Consequently, the United States decided to take military action in 1801, alongside Sweden, against the Barbary states. While the Spanish had made substantial payments in the 1780s to combat the pirates, these efforts had proven ineffective. The American strategy primarily involved blockades and port bombardments, which initially yielded limited results. However, a turning point came when the United States chose to collaborate with a former deposed ruler of Tripoli. Together, they marched into Tripolitania and pressured its current ruler into making peace to avoid a potential civil war. The terms of this peace agreement were not entirely favorable to the U.S., as it required substantial payments to Tripoli in exchange for the release of American prisoners and safe passage for American shipping. Unfortunately, this safe passage did not last long, and during the War of 1812, the British encouraged the Barbary states to intensify attacks on American shipping. After the war ended, the U.S. government resolved to permanently address the piracy issue. Learning from past experiences, they dispatched even more ships armed with heavier artillery to convey a strong message. American forces pursued the pirates from Algiers and demanded that they cease all raids on American shipping or face the destruction of their ports. The Barbary states reluctantly agreed to these terms, allowing American ships to return home safely. While the Barbary states persisted, the fact that a smaller power like the United States had defeated them prompted other major naval powers to reevaluate the situation, recognizing that they no longer had to tolerate pirate attacks and were no longer engaged in conflicts with each other. These powers decided to take action. The British were the first to strike, repeatedly bombarding Algiers as punishment for piracy. However, it wasn't until the 1830s that France annexed Algiers and took control of its port, putting a definitive end to Barbary raiding in the region.